Hi Kulez, welcome back to the channel. Join me as we take a look at the second half tactics of Barcelona versus Valencia. I think we should really do the videos this season, a video for both halves, because sometimes a lot of stuff changes within the second half, so I thought it would be interesting. As always, do subscribe to the channel, it's going to help us a lot. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. In the second half, Valencia took a page out of Barcelona's book as they pressed up front with these two players, and then they had their wingers coming on to the double pivot. But the major difference here was that Bernal was the only pivot and Casado was of course a little bit higher up the pitch. So these two players were marking the same player in Marc Bernal, and this player couldn't actually keep on his place out wide because he was kept close by Casado. So Barcelona had an easy outlet towards the wing which they could look to attack the space. Barcelona had the same build-up shape like we have had forever, especially in the second half. We saw Ter Stegen having the centre-backs on either side of him, very, very wide. And here we see that Bernal was the lone pivot. I actually saw a lot of you arguing within the comment section. And then you see the two strikers up front and the two midfielders, the same way that Hansi Flick tried to press with Lewandowski. But the difference was that Casado was higher up. So there was two players that had the same player, which was Bernal. And now Barcelona could easily get the ball up the pitch over on the wings. However, Barcelona had an easy time just progressing with the centre-backs, and this is actually that we saw Xavi do last year, is when the centre-backs just received the ball outside of the front two. And this player was mainly worried about Christensen, so the ball straight to Koundé was also an option. But something interesting I saw from Bernal is that he was just circulating in behind the two strikers, where he would drag one away and open up the space where Casado or even Raphinha could receive the ball straight from Marc-Andre Ter Stegen. So the verticality this season is probably going to be insane for Barcelona. Over here we see that Christensen is receiving the ball just outside of the high press of the front two, and I honestly believe that teams that press us with a front two would really struggle to keep us at bay higher up the pitch. Here we see Inigo doing the same, just a little bit higher up the pitch. So the centre backs has really been encouraged to be a lot more adventurous than we've seen. And you see Bernal over in the half space, and you can see there's actually a passing lane from Ter Stegen straight to Marc Casado, as Barcelona can easily express them. In the second half, we saw a lot of things go for Barcelona. However, one of the reasons were the fact that Casado came a lot closer to Marc Bernal in order to outnumber the 4-2-3-1 system we saw later on from Valencia. But the involvement of Ter Stegen actually had Inigo go over to the left back area, which would have the left back, which was Martin, and Balde go higher, which means that Ferran Torres could come into this half space right here. So if Casado would drop, these players cannot really follow him because that would open up the space for Ferran Torres. But the other thing I really liked was the fact that when Barcelona had the system going on, Raphinha was on the left side and there was nobody really in this space right here. And this is where I think that Lamine is going to receive the ball, therefore he would be closer towards the goal. The high-risk involvement of Ter Stegen has really had me at the edge of my seat, because if there's a mistake from him, it's literally goal. And I've seen him being utilized way more by Flick. Here we see Casado freely receiving the ball because Ferran Torres is just in behind him. So if that player would go up to press, then Ferran would receive the ball in space. Lamine Yamal is now receiving the ball within the half space, especially with that overload to isolate tactic. And I really think this is to get him to be closer towards the goal. You can see here a lot more closer as the ball comes from Raphinha in this instance right here. And I think Mikel Arteta is actually encouraging this, especially with Bukayo Saka as well. And you can see while Lamine is receiving the ball within the half space, you now have two runners that literally can run ahead of him, which is Casado and Lamine Yamal, which creates a lot of movement for Barca. The introduction of Pedri and Eric Garcia was actually a blessing in disguise, as Pedri was, of course, like we all know, controlling the goal or the ball much better and controlling the game as well. And then Eric Garcia was doing a lot in terms of ball winning. This is actually why I think that Hansi Flick preferred him in the midfield over Andreas Christensen, right? But Valencia did later on higher up the pitch switch to a 4-4-2 situation. So in the situation that we saw that the centre backs were blocked, you could see that Koundé would be the third centre back. And this actually ensured that this player was drawn out of position as he has to stay with Casado. That meant that Lamine Yamal was now in his one-on-one situation. However, Lamine mainly received the ball in the half space area right here, and then you would see Koundé overlapping constantly and running. And if Lamine did decide to stay high, you would see Casado make these runs right here. So this triangle was a good thing, and we see a relationship is going to develop from these three players right over here. And the same thing happened on the other side, right? With Pedri just joining up later on and get at the edge of the box in these areas right over here. Like I said, this triangle right here is going to be a prominent fixture for Barcelona. These three work extremely well, you know, in getting Lamine in the better position, in supporting him and running ahead of him. So Koundé was really dragging these players out of position, and ultimately Lamine Yamal was in a one-on-one situation over on that right wing, which can be the best for Barcelona, right? But like I said, with Koundé staying so back, there was a huge space in the right half space on the right side of Lewandowski, and I think Lamine is going to receive the ball countless times in that area so that he can be closer to the goal. Like for an example here, look at Casado running ahead of Robert Lewandowski, and Koundé also running ahead of Lamine in order to get in that space. And there's nobody that's going to mark him, so he's probably going to be open the whole time. And Barcelona's structure is really wide, and not only horizontally in terms of width, but also vertically in terms of width, right? And on the left hand side, you're going to see the same thing, even though we don't have one-on-one situations going on, but you can also see guys who's going to prominently run into that space. In the second half, Hansi Flick still insisted with Robert Lewandowski defending in the midfield, and Raphinha and Lamine Yamal was the ones onto the centre-backs. However, it's key to note here that Raphinha did a much better job at putting pressure and in getting Valencia over to one side, and therefore Lamine Yamal could easily also get onto these players if they would receive the ball, and Casado and Eric Garcia could easily soft over to the side. So I was surprised when I realized that it was because of Raphinha that we actually had a much better press up front, much better than Ferran Torres actually did. So I think the 4-2-2-2 situation, you know, like this, is going to be a prominent pressing structure for Barcelona this season. In this frame, we can perfectly see the 4-2-2 situation with Robert Lewandowski actually pressing in the midfield. And I think this is Flick actually trying to mask his age and helping him out with a little bit more with the press, right? But Lamine and Raphinha or Paul Victor was tasked to come and help out the midfielder on their side. In this case, it's Casado, so that Koundé is not in a one-on-one situation, right? But Raphinha, when he went on to press on the left wing, he was much better actually than Ferran Torres. So for this system to work, I think we're going to have to be insanely aggressive. Like you can see here, Koundé coming up onto the fullback and actually fouling him. So for this press to work, we're going to be aggressive, but then we're going to be extremely vulnerable if we don't succeed in the press. We have reached the end of this video of the second half. Like I said in the beginning of the video, we are going to do 2 videos on each game because the tactics really changes when the substitutions happen or the managers adjust their tactics at halftime. So we're going to do 2 videos on each game. As always, guys, please do subscribe to the channel. It's going to help us a lot to get this family to grow bigger. We upload weekly Barcelona content only. All right, so if that's you and you want to see that, do subscribe. You're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you very much for watching.